Shalom, this is Sophia, the AmaruKhan Miriyam, and we're here just with a little chit-chat video. I wanted to pass on some information that I received in regards to my light language activation that I shared that I think would be useful and helpful to everyone. So what I was told was that if you watch the video, when the girl started like going towards my throat, she started coughing, and she said that I have an overactive throat chakra, and she also said that a lot of the attacks that are coming are really coming from inside of me, and I was already aware of that, but this is what I want to talk about in relation to that. Like, if you've been doing a lot of like cord cutting of, we've done a lot of cord cutting collectively. People have been doing it on their own. When you have an overactive throat chakra, it still comes down to a solar plexus issue. Let's just put it that way. And basically that means somebody is tied to your solar, or it could mean that someone is tied to your solar plexus and they're draining your energy out your solar plexus so that the energy that's supposed to either come down, like if it's coming down, it can't get all the way to the root and all the way into the earth star chakra. So you have to look at your chakras like there's a lot of them, but just think of the ones that go up and down as a system. And so if you have a normally functioning heart chakra, which means you have empathy and sympathy, that's something you can really work on yourself and all of that, then that means that the stuck energy is still going to have to go somewhere. And so in my case, it caused a throat chakra issue. But in order to solve the throat chakra issue, you have to solve the solar plexus issue. Now, it was my belief and understanding that when we cut the cords and the ties to these the professional victims unit, that would solve that problem. So I was quite surprised to find out, basically the way I interpreted what she said once I looked into it, was that there's something else tied into my throat, to my solar plexus chakra. So this made me think this is what was uploaded to me, is that basically they took our energy and divided into little pieces. This is kind of like the Osiris story, where his brother was so angry, he cut him up into little pieces and put them all over the place, and then Isis came and put him back together. This is kind of what this reminds, except for the piece that was missing was his phallus. She could not put that back, so she gave him a stand-in one. And that's what this kind of like feels like. Like, we're taking back all the little pieces of ourselves from all these different places, but there's still an issue of who has our original reproductive organs, male or female, who is still tapped into our solar plexus. And I do believe I know who it is. We're going to take a different strategy for this battle. So don't be surprised if I have to be pretty cryptic about stuff, because I don't want any collateral damage. And if these people are just as bad as the professional victims unit or worse, then I do believe this is going to be a much more intense fight, which is why we had to free the saints and get all the saints on board, working with all these different entities. And just like I said with the professional victims unit, these entities are tired of working with them. This just doesn't mean, now we're not just talking about the demons and the angels. We're talking about all the pantheons of gods, the Greek gods, the Roman gods, the indigenous gods, the Orishas, none of these entities want to work with anyone connected to the Leviathan, who pledged their allegiance to the Leviathan. And so that is where the Egyptian gods, none of these people want to work with anyone who pledged their allegiance to the Leviathan. That got them into a lot of trouble, and they also have to clean up their act. And I guess we are the people over here that help these entities clean up their acts, because I guess nobody else will do it, and people will probably just, so upset that these are the people who have been attacking us, that of course you wouldn't, typically just easily and quickly forgive someone who's been attacking you. But at the same time, it is my belief that everybody can be returned back into source, and it's my belief that everyone deserves love. And so that is how I operate, because just because people made mistakes, they were also tricked. Everybody was tricked. The whole thing about Satan being the deceiver of the world is that he deceived everybody, not just people, demons, other entities, positive entities that turn, into infernal entities, because Satan lied to them. Everybody was lied to. Okay, that's my belief. Everyone was lied to, which means everybody has to be given an opportunity to correct their wrongs. And so one thing is that if you're over here on this side and you've been doing the work on yourself, one important thing to know is that these entities can't attack you. Now, I've said this other ways, but I'm saying it, I'll say it like this, because I think that it's easier for me to process it like this. It's all a projection. They can't attack me, but they can project an attack onto me. And I have the right and the opportunity to reject that projection. So even if it appears as if I'm being attacked, that is a projection that someone is putting onto me. And I have the opportunity to reject that projection and replace it with a feeling that feels more authentic. And for me, I have to phrase it in all those different words instead of saying, the girl had said to me, well, those are just coming from you. Well, that's not, well, how? See, that's a problem I have in general when people describe stuff and they're like, oh, well, you're just doing it to yourself. Okay, well, how is that? If you're going to tell me that I'm doing something to myself, which I don't have a problem with that as a statement, you better be able to explain it, because that doesn't make any sense. So when someone says to me, what is going on with me? Like someone is asking me for, an explanation of something. I'm not just going to tell them, oh, you're doing that psychologically, you're doing that to yourself. No, it's a far more nuanced answer than that. It's basically like somehow someone uploaded a program to you that puts you into a loop, like a doom loop, in which when you have a certain trigger, that you automatically respond in a certain way. So that's just like, I had a problem with my car, and I was like, well, what is this? It's like someone uploaded a trigger to me, and so that whenever my car has a full tank of gas, it triggers me to, or it's not even when the car has a full tank of gas. When I put a full tank of gas in the car, which is an action that I do, it triggers an already outstanding problem in this vehicle with having a full tank of gas. It's a trigger. And so it's like when I get the money to put in a full tank of gas, it triggers me to do it. And my action of putting in the full tank of gas triggers the car, which already had the pre-existing issue of not being able to take a full tank of gas, which I didn't know that, but obviously something in me knew that in order to trigger this negative response. And that's what it's like. It's not like, people always say, well, you did this to yourself, you did that to yourself. I mean, I've heard people say this a lot. You're creating your own downfall, right? That's what people say. But what we have to understand is, what does that look like? So let's say, for example, you have problems with your kids, right? And so perhaps your children are always triggered when you talk to them a certain way. I know this is the case with my daughter. Whenever I talk to her a certain way, she's always triggered. Well, you can cause things to spiral out of control, because when, even though you may or may not recognize that your child is triggered by this, but the spirits around recognize this. So you can create the problems, the bad day for yourself, by being triggered into responding to your child in a way that you know is going to create more problems. And you did it to yourself, technically. And so if you're just a practitioner looking from the outside, you can see how the person is triggering all these things to happen for themselves. But how did that trigger get uploaded to me? That's the part where we have to really look at our responses to things, which I have been talking about since I started this channel. Look at how you respond to things and figure out why you respond the way that you do. What I'm finding out is that in order to really get past all of these people who have these attachments to us, we have to literally become new people. And it's not just like being transformed by the renewing of your mind. No, you need to dress in all different clothes. You need to do all different things. You need to do a lot of the opposite things that you would normally do. You need to respond in opposite ways than you would normally respond. And you have to do it pretty consistently in order to really activate the new DNA that you have, because your angels could have given you new DNA, but if you didn't do anything about the program that was implanted on your DNA, period, all you're going to do is turn your new DNA into old DNA, and then these people can come right back and continue to attack you. So if you really want to stop the attacks, if you really want to get rid of these people who have these soul ties and whatever kind of other ties to our solar plexus or whatever, and not positive ties either, you really want to develop almost like a new person to become. Like you can take parts of yourself that you like. You don't have to leave your skills, but you have to come up with new ways to respond to just about everything. And a lot of it, this is why the whole meditation thing is important. Doing your shadow work is important. Knowing who you are is important. And identifying with at least one of your past lives or previous incarnations is helpful, because it also takes you back to a time when maybe they weren't whoever they are, they weren't imprinted into your into your DNA. Because basically what it is, if you're running a program on autopilot, that means somebody just imprinted into your DNA their own code. And so you have, like I said, even if that code is, and you know anything about coding, you'll understand what I mean. Even if that code is rooted out, like you take it out, you go back to the root. If you just copy and paste the old code back in, you've done nothing. All you've done is, spend a lot of time going back, to solve the problems, and then you put the same code right back in. This is why I have been looking into doing all kinds of new things and not doing the same things, not thinking the same way, not coming up with the same plans. And it's not that my old plans were bad, but I don't know what of my old plans were mine or what of my old plans were implanted into me during when these people had access to my code. And so I'm going back and reviewing lots of stuff. I've thought about going back into this whole program of, why is my hair red? Maybe I should not have red hair. Maybe I should do something else with my hair. Or maybe instead of, dyeing it and bleaching it with unnatural products, I should use what our ancestors would have used to put color into their hair and that kind of thing. And maybe it shouldn't be red, maybe it should be blue, or maybe it should be purple. Or, I've really been thinking about this stuff, because I understand that these things need to be reconsidered because I don't know how they got into my program. Although I do know how I got red hair into my program, you just want to be sure that it was that is beneficial to you and it's not something that somebody implanted onto you to give you. So you don't have to automatically jump to the conclusion that everything is bad. I'm not saying that. You just want to think about it, because what I feel happening is that with the removal of the professional victims unit from our energy, they were the ones that were holding on to our money, right? The money aspect. But then there's another aspect that should be returned to us from another group of people who were working with the Leviathan, which we also have to consider. And so this is definitely going to be a process of rebuilding, and just keep that in mind, that, you know, this is more like going into the Egyptian pantheon now, like looking at that whole concept of Osiris being put back together. That's what we're doing. The Most High is putting us back together, but the solar plexus is still being tapped into, because that's the part that Isis did not find. She did not find his solar plexus. And so that is where it's easiest for these individuals to tap into our energy. And so you do have to do a lot of cord cutting. You have to constantly be cord cutting, really. I do have an idea for something that will help with that. I'm thinking about it now, trying to put it all into order, because I do know that there's definitely something to this, and I feel like we have to be a little bit more proactive than what we've been with the professional victims unit, and we have to really approach this from a strong perspective. But we should be approaching this from a strong perspective with our finances returned to us. That is what I feel. And so I would say, you know, have a plan for when you do have additional resources coming in, what you're going to do with that, what you're going to be like, how are you going to feel. Really start to feel that, so that way when it happens, you don't get off track. The number one problem that we have is that people are still expecting to sell a product and make money. And I know that there's lots of people who will probably disagree with me on this, and I'm fine with that. But I do not believe that that is a viable method for making revenue moving forward. I don't think that that's going to be for certain people who are trying to really heal the planet and find that to be their primary goal, to actually restore the planet to its former glory. Working for money, selling products for money, all of that is pretty much going to go out the window for certain people. And it's not that you're not going to make money from selling products, but thinking that the money that you make is going to come from your work and your effort, that really has to come out of our collective energy. And if it does not, for the people who it does not, they're going to find it extremely difficult to function in the higher levels, because they don't do that. This is why energy philanthropy is really important, because in the higher dimensions, they don't do that. They just don't do it. If somebody needs something and they have it, they give it to them. If somebody needs help, they go and help them. This is what they do in the higher dimensions. So if you're stuck in a position where you believe that it's something that you can do that is bringing you some kind of money, and it's your efforts that are doing that, you are going to be stuck in these lower dimensions. You have to get out of that. And you don't have to get out of it. I mean, everybody is not meant to go into the higher dimensions, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people walking around here like they are meant to go into the higher dimensions, only to find out that they're not going to make it, because they do They literally do not believe in a world in which they do not have to sell a product in order to live, or do a service or have a job. They don't believe in that. And it doesn't exist outside of this. I would say, I know it doesn't exist in the sixth dimension, but it barely exists in the fifth dimension. The fifth dimensional energy exchange is all about energy philanthropy and just giving, and the energy that you have to give. And people want to see this new earth and this new this and this new that, but they haven't developed the way for the money to come to them without them having to do anything for it. And so, and I don't mean do anything as in you have to wait for the government to offer you the contract back to them, and then all of a sudden now you're back in the contract with these people. No, what I mean is you have things set up on autopilot. You have money automatically coming in. You are giving so that the money can come back to you. You're really engaged in that kind of activity. And I think that moving forward, that is really going to be an issue, because a lot of people, they truly believe that somehow, some way, they are going to be able to do something to live. Like there's something that they can do that will make it so that they can live. And I just think that's a fallacy. I don't think that's going to be productive moving forward. And I hope people will reconsider that thought process, because it's very toxic, actually, to think that you are in charge of anything that comes into your life or leaves out of your life. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I am a steward of it. I am a manager of it. I'm just like the servant whom the master gave the talents. I'm going to take those talents and do something with them. But what are you doing with the actual talents that you have? I mean, aside from money, what are you doing with the skills that you have to invest into the kingdom? And that's where the energy philanthropy comes in. The energy that you do have, the skills that you do have, the abilities that you do have, you could be investing those into the kingdom. And the more of those you invest, the master will give you more. But a lot of people, they want to apply that only to money, and they don't understand it applies to everything. So if you're only giving money to people, and you're not giving them any energy or time, that's what you can expect to reap. I mean, to harvest when harvest time comes. So if you've been sowing good seed on good land, then you can expect to reap 100-fold of what you've sown. But if you've only sown like, I'm still giving some money here, I didn't really verify that the person needed it or it was going to be useful or whatever. Or, oh yeah, I did this, I did that, but it really wasn't thoughtful. It was just something I kind of threw out there. And no, that's not what energy philanthropy is. It's getting the right energy to the right person who needs it. And I don't think people are doing that. I think they're being very nonchalant, or they're not being responsible for the talents that the Most High gave them. And I do believe that's going to start to show up with people. And so again, you will get back what you put in. We're in a time of instant karma, especially from now until the 3rd of November, when Saturn goes direct. It's going to be a lot of what you've been putting out, you're going to get in return. So people who have not put out anything and they're waiting for something to show up, I don't believe it's going to happen like that. Some people it might, depending on your chart. I mean, that's something you would know for yourself. But for the great majority of people, especially if you're a generator, if you have not been putting any energy out, because you are the generator, you are the energy that keeps this place going. If you haven't been putting any energy out, you're definitely not going to get what you need back in return. And energy is not just energy, it's money, it's literal energy, as in talking to people, working with people, helping people, and it's also money. So if you're a generator and you haven't been putting any energy out, I don't look for the same kind of blessing as the people who have. Because even if when the Israelites left, they left with great wealth, they had to go into that person's house and get it. Like I've said before, a good idea rarely interrupts you. I got that from Jim Rohn. No one's going to interrupt you and hand you money. But if you're actively seeking for it, you've done the work for it, when the time comes up, it will be handed to you. We have to get out of this idea that stuff is going to be handed to us. When the people who took back the kingdom, who really put their energy and effort into taking back the kingdom, have done a lot of work for it. It wasn't by a mistake. It wasn't by an accident that we were given the keys on how to unlock the kingdom. It was because we did a lot of work. And there's a lot of people who have done no work, and yet they want to also be taking back the kingdom power, and it doesn't work like that. It just does not work like that. So I'm just a messenger, explaining this the way that it was shown to me. If you're waiting for money to just show up, because let me say this, I saw something on TikTok and it was like, oh well, they reclassified Negroes as indigos, and so now you can go and get some money. Like, from where? From who? The Bureau of Indian Affairs? Who are you getting this money from? And so first of all, what they said is not true, unless it's true for one specific settlement. And if that's a settlement, then if you don't know the terms of that settlement, you can't possibly qualify for it. So people, when you hear stuff like that, just know that it's a distraction to take you off of the actual work. Like, we're trying to help people with getting their name copywritten, going after this, getting your secure creditor process. That's the real process. So everything else that people are throwing out there is not the real process. This is a distraction. It's a hijack. It's to keep you from putting forth the energy and the effort to actually go through and own yourself. And this is the same thing. Don't you think these people would have been, walking through the streets of Egypt, and you think these people were throwing their money at them? No, they was going to them and say, hey, if you want to live, go ahead on and pass it over. And then the people were giving it. It wasn't that they don't even tell you what happened, but that's what makes sense to me. People weren't just throwing their jewels and stuff in the streets. No, people were going to their houses and say, hey, I'll pray for you, but you're going to have to give it all up. And they gave it all up and they prayed for them. And the Lord, he protected those ones, because that's how it's always worked. It's always been about our throat chakra, our voice, our prayers. It's always been about that. So if you think that this is somehow going to be about anything other than that, no. And if you sign any contract to recontract with the government, you're giving up your voice. You're allowing them to tap into your sacral chakra, which obviously they have our reproductive organs somewhere, using it for something, and that's going to give you an overactive throat chakra. So you'll be telling the government everything about yourself, and you ain't supposed to tell these people nothing. They don't need to know about you. That's what social media is. It's an overactive throat chakra. It's getting out there and telling everything. If all your chakras are active, properly in balance, then it'll only be just enough. You'll have proper boundaries and all of that. But if you've got an overactive throat chakra, then you don't have no boundaries. You just get on the internet, you tell everybody everything, and you're like, without even thinking about it, you done put out way more information than you wanted to. And it's not just people on platforms like me. You could have a Facebook, you could have a Twitter, you could be in the chat with some of these camps telling everybody your signs and your human design types and your date of births and all of that. This information can be gathered from all of that. So for sure, we all have overactive throat chakras. This is a problem amongst our people, because they have our reproductive sacral chakra bound up, and we have to really unbind it. And it's not going to get unbound by you just thinking about it. You have to go and you have to do the work. And you have to keep doing it until you are And you have to, until you are free, and then you also have to control your throat chakra. And maybe I'll do another video on that specifically once I find some techniques that work for me. But that's going to be my focus, is to control my throat chakra and be very cautious about how much information I reveal and how much is necessary, how much information is actually helping people, and how much information is just the enemy or the deceiver trying to get me to sabotage myself. Because a lot of it is that they don't have any power. I have all the power over me, but if I have not removed all the programs that they have programmed into me, doesn't matter how much power I have. And that's where we are. It doesn't matter how much power you have if you're not in control of the program. You can have all the power you want, but if your program is rotten, then your power is rotten. And it's not because we haven't been given a new set of keys. That's not it. It's because we did not install a new program. We're still trying to hold on to who we were, and instead of just trying to become who we are supposed to be. So I hope that makes sense to people. And as I find techniques, this is something I'm going to be really looking into, really working on. I'll make another video with some suggestions. I just want people to have that information, because I realize if that was true for me, that was probably true for a lot of us, and we have to get that under control. And it doesn't mean that you don't talk to people. That's not what an overactive throat chakra means. It really means that you're giving too much information, you're sharing too much, you give away too many of your plans. Like if you go on trips and stuff, all the readers have been like, whatever you get, just don't talk about it, don't tell nobody, just let people see it and come to their own conclusions and don't get to it. So you have to really, pull back on your throat chakra energy until you can get into balance. It also means that when you have conversation with people, you don't interrupt them. You try to let them talk. You let them get their point across, and you make your point, and you're able to have conversations with people. Well, if you're not talking to anybody who has a different opinion than you, how do you know if you've got your throat chakra under control? You'll never know. You have to have these people who are different for you to gauge how in control you are. And that should help. I hope that this reaches everyone well. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please sign up for the newsletter, for the Discord server. I will put the link for our meeting on I think it's the 25th or the 26th. I think it's the 25th, before the full moon in Taurus. We're going to have another little group session then, and we'll go over some stuff. And I hope that stuff will be helpful to people. So shalom, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.